Before we begin, the news out of Boston, finally, a sentence for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Let's go to the newsroom where John Bachman has the latest. John?
Well, that sentence is the death penalty. We are learning today that the jury took about 14 hours over the course of 3 days to find Dzhokhar Tsarnaev would be serving that death sentence, not life in prison, as many had thought. This sets the stage for what could be the nation's first execution of a terrorist in the post-9/11 era. And we say could set the stage because we know there is going to be an appeal process that drags out for years and years. Also, we're hearing from the Associated Press now that Tsarnaev's father, Anzor Tsarnaev, was reached by the phone by a reporter from the Associated Press in Russia in the region of Dagestan, and his father let out a loud, deep moan upon hearing the news that his son would be put to death. Of course, the defense team in this case tried to present Dzhokhar Tsarnaev as the younger kid brother of Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who was really, at least according to the defense here, the mastermind of all this, which killed 3 people in the Boston Marathon attack, injuring more than 200 others. And of course, a fourth person was killed too in all this, that MIT police officer. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was 19 years old when this played out. He is 21 years old now. When the verdict was read about the death penalty today, according to witnesses inside the courtroom, his head was hung a little bit, but not really showing much emotion. Tsarnaev's chief lawyer, death penalty specialist Judy Clark, admitted at the very start of the trial that he participated in the bombing, but again, she just said this was not him. Ed, of course, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev will be put to death, but after a long appeals process.
All right, John, thanks. We'll be following up as well, and John will be back with the news a little bit later on. All right, let us then go ahead and begin the Friday edition of Midpoint, if you will. You see, David Letterman's last show airs next Wednesday, May 20th. He's not the only major comedian stepping down from his post. Comedy Central's Jon Stewart will host The Daily Show for the last time in the first week of August. Shows that used to be all about entertainment are now becoming more about the news, such as what we've just talked about. And that line between the two has blurred almost to the point of being non-existent. The realization of how infotainment has changed every one of us and how it will morph once again. Our guest has penned lines that made millions of Americans laugh. Writer for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno and author of the book Monologue, What Makes America Laugh Before Bed, Jon Macks joins us on Midpoint. John, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Ed.
John, before we start out at laughs, let's talk about news a little bit, because the news coming out of Boston today about Dzhokhar Tsarnaev again, this is finally coming to a little bit of a close. When you're doing a late night show, though, and I'm curious, you're there to make people laugh. You're there to give them some entertainment at the end of the night. How did you guys as writers approach something like this when you have it happen before you get to tape and then you feel you might have to say something?
Yeah, it's a great question. When the event itself happens, whether it's a September 11th or an O.J. Simpson or a Hurricane Katrina, what you do, obviously, you're never going to make fun of the tragedy itself. But what you do as time goes on, you start to find the colorful characters, the ridiculous things, the Kato Kalins for O.J., FEMA, for example, for after Hurricane Katrina. For September 11th, I remember one of our first jokes on The Tonight Show was about bin Laden a couple weeks later, and the joke was something like, you know, he has 51 brothers and sisters, he's the 27th. See, it's always the middle child that gives you the problem. And, you know, once you can start making fun of the characters around, then you can do it. When you have a situation like this, when the Boston bombing happened, obviously there was no jokes. Now, and again, I'm just going to go out and guess, tonight there might be a few jokes on late night about the villain, because in the end he's somebody we are punishing both through our court system, but our late night comics are going to punish him through some material. I suspect there'll be a joke or two.
If you look at it, there's part of that line I just talked about, the way it has been blurring between information, entertainment, and news, because a lot of people now get their news from the late night shows, and we're talking about, of course, Jon Stewart and so many others, but even from The Tonight Show, from Jimmy Fallon, from all the rest that are there, it's sometimes where they believe the news is best delivered to them, and that's sort of a demographic thing, isn't it? I think more people in this day and age feel more comfortable sometimes getting it from someone who might be delivering faux news or comic news, if you will.
Yeah, you know, again, in the end, I always say the premise is true, the setup is true. So when a Leno or a Letterman or a Jimmy Fallon or a Conan or a Seth or whoever is delivering the setup, they're getting the fact there. The comic twist obviously comes in with either the host's point of view, or in the case of somebody like Jay, who really, I think, spoke for America, kind of what our collective point of view is. But you're getting that information from the setup.
Letterman is, and I believe, the longest running late night host now. And it's funny when you think about that. We all thought in an older generation that it was Carson and then it was others. But he has been around so long. How has he indeed changed the way that we view our world and also the way that we're going to watch late night television from here on out?
Well, I mean, I think he was the, if you go to the book, I talk a little bit about how Steve Allen, who invented late night television, was always known kind of as zany. And when David Letterman came on, I think he took on that tradition. There had been a gap, obviously, for many years when Carson was the host. Johnny was cool. He wasn't out of control. And Letterman came on and, I mean, really was... he would try anything. So you remember the Velcro, you remember the stupid dog tricks, you remember him making the cue card guy and the stage manager become actual part of the show. And I think that changed the way, and I think he's led in a lot of ways to what Jimmy Fallon does now. Dave himself, I think, changed as time went on, because what he really is, as you know, he's an excellent interviewer. And when you're sitting with Letterman, if you're across that desk from him, you pretty much know how Dave feels about you. There's no hiding his emotions. If he thinks you're a bad guest, you can tell. And if he loves you like he likes a Billy Crystal or Marty Short, you know it. He gives you free range.
Is it enough just to do a good interview anymore? Because if you look at what Jimmy Fallon is doing, there's a lot of skits, there's a lot of things that he now brings. He's now doing music videos as well. Do you have to add all that? It seems as if you've got to, because the audience just wants more.
The audience really wants more. There are going to be people who always do want that opening 8 or 9 minute monologue, the kind of the post-local news, setting themselves up, kind of reflecting on the day. But after you do that, I mean, that's what Jay did. That Seth Meyers delivers a great monologue. Once you get past that, people expect to be entertained. In the end, if you have on an actor from a second-level movie talking about his role, there's not much there. You need to interact with him. That's what Fallon does so brilliantly.
Yeah, and you don't want to do Sharknado over and over again. It'll start to get to you after a while. Isn't it fair to say, please, I don't know why, but I just hurt myself. When you look at the way television is changing now, fair to say that YouTube now is a huge part of it, because people see the bits themselves. They see the 2-minute bits, the 90-second bits, and that drives people more than ever before. You don't have to worry about putting together a big show, because a lot of your people will come later when they get it through social media.
Exactly. I mean, what happened was, obviously, when I was growing up, it was appointment television. We're going to watch Johnny Carson. And when Jay and Dave first came on, it was appointment television. And now what happens is you don't have to sit there and feel compelled to watch a whole hour show. You can go to a variety of social media outlets and you can find the best of Jimmy Fallon, the best of a Kimmel, the best of a Seth or a Conan, any night you want.
So you've got to be
Anytime.
funny. You got to be funny in pieces, though, anymore, don't you? Whether it's you're doing fake news or whether you're doing comedy, you've got to do it in small pieces now, because that drives people to you more than ever before.
Absolutely. The one small exception to that, I think, is John Oliver at times does what I'll call he'll do like a 10 or 12 minute rant, just where he takes on a topic. That's a standalone, but I think that makes him the exception. For the most part, you're looking at that short bit, whether it's, Fallon's thank you letters, thank you notes, things like that. Short bit, self-contained, laugh, move on.
I'll tell you what, I only got about 20 seconds left, but I think you'd agree with me. Colbert's got one hell of an act to follow.
Oh, absolutely. It's, Letterman, my hat's off to him, a great 30-plus years on TV.
And I got to tell you, I love Dave from the minute he showed up. Didn't make a difference how old he got. I still thought Dave was brilliant. Just the way he handled things and the way he was just off color, it was awesome. Reminds something of something else that's awesome, by the way, the book itself. Great look at those of you who've grown up with late night TV. Monologue, What Makes America Laugh. Before bed, it will make you laugh and give you a whole lot of insight as well. Jon Macks, pleasure to talk to you again, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll do it again.
You bet. Take care, Ed.
All right, buddy. Take care. And you see what I did there, which is smart? I don't tell jokes to the guy who knows how to do it for a living. Stay with us. The program that questions everything. Midpoint. Next.